here. So everything you say can and will be recorded for posterity. So just be mindful of that. And also, if I can see my way clear, which is always an if, we're going to broadcast on Facebook Live as well, so that if people happen to be home, they happen to tune in, oh, look at that. Maybe more customers will be interested in learning. A story of murder and mayhem and of ongoing trauma as regards one's children. Who more than David HaMelech, who suffered mightily, unfortunately, at the hands not only of his enemies, political, but also enemies that he could not really call enemies. They were literally his kin. They were him. They were his family, his children. For those who are just joining us and want to watch the previous sessions, they're all on YouTube, and you're welcome to find them there. Unfortunately, last week's shir, only the first 30 minutes recorded, and then it shut off on the YouTube. I don't know what happened. It's not even recorded. So let me just recap a couple of the basic points of that, and then I want to move to the next section in the chapter that we're up to, chapter 15 of Sefer Shmuel Bet. So in the last session, what we had talked about, just in the last one, was about this individual named Itai Hagiti. We saw that David HaMelech has a rapport with people who are possibly not even Jewish. They're not strictly mercenaries, though. He has some kind of allegiance that he feels toward them and they toward him, and a certain loyalty. That's a two-way street. But what we focused on mostly last week, which is unfortunately not recorded, so you'll have to remember or have to re-record it some other time, is what happened with Tzadok HaKohen and Evyatar HaKohen. And we had been focused on the psukim that appear, verses 24, 25, and 26, and 27. Or, okay, 28 and 29 also. It's 24 through 29. 5 psukim, almost the whole shir, over an hour long. What was the discussion? What's going on where David HaMelech, A, refuses to take the Aron HaKodesh with him? He's the king. He's going out to battle. It's an unconventional battle, but he still has to somehow contend with the rebellion. I'm not taking the main piece that the Jewish people are meant to take with them to war. And we talked about why that might be. Various ideas that we tried to explore based on the words of Chazal, the Gemara, etc. And also people contributed different ideas. One of the things that we spoke about was the sense that David HaMelech had that on a certain level, he said to himself, Magia li, meaning he couldn't draw a direct line necessarily saying the reason why my son Avshalom rebels against me is because of terrible things that I did involving Bathsheba and Uriah way back when. However, I was told by the prophet 2 contradictory things. 1, a blank check, chapter 7, the prophet Natan communicates to him on the behalf of the Almighty, you'll never lose the kingdom, meaning the house of David will never lose the kingdom. That's point 1. And point 2 is, he is told by Natan HaNavi, the same prophet, after the sins actually plural, in that famous allegory which we have parsed and parsed and parsed, we won't go back there now, of the Kivsat Harash, of the sadness about this man with his lamb, etc. And then finally, when the mask comes off and Natan says, well, here's your punishment, he lays out a series of punishments which does not include David dying, but does include the sword not departing from David's home. And how does David reconcile these two? He's thinking to himself, wow, Amnon, my son, raped my daughter Tamar. My son Avshalom killed my son Amnon. And now my son Avshalom is not killing me, but he's killing me. He's not coming to assassinate me, but he has basically usurped the throne on the grounds that I'm old, I'm a has-been, my time is come and gone, and it's his turn. So he set up shop in Hebron. What does David do? He's leaving Yerushalayim. He doesn't want to take with him even the trapping of the mantle of God is with me. How do I know? I have the Aron Kodesh. He remembers, everyone remembered what happened in Shmuel Aleph. He didn't have the book, but everyone knew the story, that at one time when the Jewish people sadly started to vest more and more of their sense of confidence, but confidence bordering on hubris, in the idea that as long as they had the trappings of the support of God, they would have support of God. which was not necessarily true, not in Mishkan Shiloh, and not with the Aron Kodesh itself, which you recall was taken captive for the better part of decades when the Plishtim fought against the Jewish people in those wars. The death of Eli Cohen and his sons, all that whole story. David says, I'm not taking this with me. But what happens next is fascinating because there's a shift in leadership as far as Chazal are concerned, right here in this moment, that Evyatar and Sadok, whereas Evyatar HaKohen was once upon a time the Kohen Gadol, suddenly there's a transfer here to someone else named Sadok. How and why did that happen? The short story is because initially when Evyatar is wearing the choshen, the breastplate with the gems, he has the Urim V'Tumim with that fold inside with some kind of parchment, we think having some kind of ineffable name of God on it, and he's standing facing the king. The king is trying to elicit basically a response from on high through divine inspiration that is held not only by the priest, by the Kohen Gadol, but is then explicated by the Kohen Gadol, Urim, lights lighting up in some way, or letters protruding that can be seen only by the Kohen Gadol looking down while he's facing the king. And then the Tumim, the ability to conjugate those letters, basically to spell the words of whatever the response is. And David's asking, and sort of like with the Zippo lighter, it's just not going. And Evyatar says, sire, I'm not getting, I can't log on, like I'm having my internet problems. I can't log on. I can't get an answer. And the question is, well, what's the problem? Is the problem something with the Choshen? Is the problem something with Evyatar? Is the problem something with David? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. Therefore, that will go back to Yerushalayim. The ark will stay in Yerushalayim. The ark had to be, by the way, in proximity of the Kohen Gadol when he did this with the Urim V'Tumim. So they're going to go back. Tzadok becomes the Kohen Gadol. It's not Evyatar anymore. And what's David thinking? Maybe my time is also come and gone. Maybe there's meant to be a new king. And in my lifetime, I have the naches, in quotation marks, that my boy, Avshalom, becomes the king. But what has Avshalom, what does he come to represent? What does he mean now to the country? What does he mean now to me as a father who struggles with a son who I love to the nth degree, and at the same time is acting in an absolutely ruinous manner, not only to himself, remember, spoiler alert, in the end he dies, but a ruinous manner to all of the Jewish people of the world, because the kingdom is now totally unstable. That brings us to today's discussion. That was all, it took us 45 minutes to an hour to unpack that, and we saw the source again in depth. We looked at the Malbim, and we saw the Maharsha and the Gemara and Massacred Yuma, and then we saw the Radak, and we pointed out, and this was the last piece, and now that'll be the entree to this for today. Rav Amnon Bazak makes the point, which I made in much less concise terms, but he basically says, and this is the basic sentiment, David HaMelech does not see, and neither should we see, the need to pray, to feel that one is utterly dependent on God, that one submits to God's will on one side, and on the other side, that it's not really another side, that we need to do all that we can do to counter whatever challenges we might face. Both bitachon and hishtadlut, they're not at loggerheads with each other. They actually run not only in parallel, but they're intertwined one with the other, and they have to be understood that way, and that's how David functions. He doesn't roll up into a ball and decide, I'll just sit in my room, and if Avshalom comes for me, then too bad. That also had political implications. We talked about how he could have been blamed for if there would be a massacre, he'd be blamed for it, etc. But on a spiritual level, David is really, at one level, has no idea if this is the end for him. And there's an element of tziduk hadin. I accept God's judgment, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, and Ani Mamin, I believe with perfect faith. And at the same time, not a contradiction, I need to do whatever I can to stay alive, deal with the reality, and try maybe to even counter it through means that I have at my disposal. They're not a contradiction one to the other. And that's, that's sometimes maybe an area where within our own brethren, there is more of a feeling of conflict. You're either totally passive or you're totally active. It's either I do everything with my hands because I'm so powerful, or I'm a zero, ich bin a gurnish, I'm going to sit on the side and let's just fall where they may, right? But that's not really true to our tradition. The question fairly could be asked. A person, God forbid, has an illness. Maybe there's a global illness. So you say, oh, God did it to me. So if he did it, it's God's will. I'll sit in the corner. I'll take my lumps. I'll daven a lot. I'll say a tehillim. But to see a doctor, to take precautions, that's not for me, because obviously not what God wanted. That's not the Jewish way. The Jewish way is both of these things operate together. This was all introduction. Shelley, your turn. Go.
Rabbi. Yes, the point being, very nice of him to do this now, but he didn't do, am I?
No, I hear you. My volume was lower.
Very nice of him to do this now, but he did not do this before. Oh, very nice of him to do this now, but he did not do this before.
He didn't?
He did not deal with the rape of Tamar.
Oh.
He did not deal with the death of Amnon. He basically was passive through all of that and let it just happen. Now he's finally going to do some hishtadlut.
Guess what? Isn't that true to life? This is how it is. I mean, I take a very charitable view of David HaMelech, as you know. I think that's the given in the equation, given the Piskei Halacha of Chazal, who, notwithstanding the one sentence that says in one place, maybe it was an accident, we saw a slew of Gemaras, that showed that Chazal understood that what David HaMelech did was wrong. And that's all after we see that Natan Navi said to David, hey, wake up, man. Do you know what you just did? But that is the point, is that now that David had issue number one, the sadness and the tragedy of what happened with Tamar, and the sadness of what Amnon did to Tamar. Those are two sadnesses right there in that assault. Perpetrator and victim were both actually his flesh and blood. And then after the sadness of the death of Amnon, at the hand of, again, the perpetrator and the victim are both members of his own family. Now we're up to point number 3, which is the perpetrator is also the victim, is also the aggressor. Like, it's all enmeshed. And it's coming for him personally. And I think you could fairly say, well, where was he the other two? I don't know. Better late than never? You're right. But there is a point here, right? It was unresolved. It says specifically that Avshalom would not speak peaceably to Amnon after what he did to Tamar, and Tamar's living it with Avshalom in his quarters. So where was David? Why didn't he upbraid Amnon and say, you crazy fool, right? You ingrate, you violent felon, anything. 100%, but he's deadlocked. And lo aleinu, no one should be tested in such a way. The death of Amnon also, he didn't speak to his son for quite a while. It says so in the text. But finally, as his son was, say, conniving and manipulating, thinks that he would get an audience with his father didn't exactly sit down with him and learn Chumash Rashi or say, my entire kind, come sit on my lap. I mean, as a grown man, also be strange. But what happened? He gave him a kiss. Was it a kiss of I love you? A kiss of I forgive you, or a kiss of sayonara, but we're done here? And it seems to be all three. And now that balance is coming up. And I want to urge everyone to recognize that David HaMelech absolutely is engaged on all these levels for posterity when we open up Sefer Tehillim. That's what it means, the Siddur of Klal Yisrael. And that's why chapter 3, which, by the way, I was reminded looking through other sources, once upon a time, chapter 3 of the Psalms was once really numbered as chapter 2. Many people don't know that, but chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the Psalms, what we call chapter 1, chapter 2, is a division that came later. It was already known to our sages of blessed memory in the time of the Gemara, but initially, in the earlier period, First Temple period, and the beginning of the Second Temple period, chapter 1 and chapter 2 were really one long chapter, which means chapter 2, whether it's ranking number 2, rank number 3, is already, what's the chapter called? When he's running away from Avshalom, here's what he davened. Here's what David HaMelech said to Hashem. And you can read there in that chapter, it's not a conflict. It's this fusion of both the sense of Magiali, Siduk Hadin, I deserve this, and at the same time, Master of the Universe, help me to get out of this and help me to deal with my problems. Helen, I think you're the next one waiting. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Yaakov Vayishma es hadavor. He doesn't really get into it with Shimon until he's giving out the brachos later on.
Great.
And where Shimon is integrated within other tribes.
Excellent.
So he had a long mulling silence also.
Right. And by the way, exactly to your point, this also plays right into my hand from already many months ago, where we talked about so many comparisons between David HaMelech and his antecedent, Yaakov Avinu. Right? And we talked about how David is really, in a way, the corrective of Esav, but he's sort of the Yaakov-Esav character, right? On so many levels. Do you remember? I'll open that file again. It'll take too long.
Yeah.
Let's get to some things for today. Thank you for that comment. Exactly on the point. I'm just muting you again, Helen. If you want to speak in, just unmute yourself. It's creating distortion on the line, so forgive me. Let's get to the next piece of this. Look in Sefer Shmuel Bet, chapter 15. We're at verse 384. And we're up to we'll start really verse 24 and 25 and 26 we did. Let's just look at this section here, recalling, well, actually, we'll read it again. Why not? 24. I know it's the middle of a paragraph, but if you read for yourself, you weren't with us before, you'll see it describes everyone's crying. We saw the video together of going through the place of Nachal Kidron and what that means, right? Going through that area. He's going up onto Har HaZeitin, the Mount of Olives. We talked about that idea. And in this little section, though, it's V'hinei gam tzadok v'chol leviim ito nosim et Aaron brit ha'elokim v'yatziku et Aaron elokim v'yalav yatar ad tom kol ha'am la'avor min ha'ir, describing that ceremony of them leaving, and as if it was like a viewing ground that they were watching everyone who was going to leave Yerushalayim with them to go with them. And we talked previously about why they had to leave and they just withdrew just like that. Not for now. But Ayin Sham, the previous classes. Verse 25. If I find favor in God's eyes, He'll return me there, and I'll see it again, and basically, and I see its place, meaning Yerushalayim. David so connected to Yerushalayim, and so should we be. But he tells this to Tzadok, take the Aron of God back to Yerushalayim. Then, verse 26. V'im kol yomar lo chafatzti bach, hineni yasli kasher tov be'inav. And if he's basically saying to me, he's going to say to me, not through a prophet, but through the fact that either he'll get killed or completely deposed or whatever it is, but if he'll basically communicate to me, I don't want you anymore, so he'll do whatever is good in his eyes, whatever is right in God's eyes, he will do. Verse 27. V'yomer melech el tzadok hakohen, haroeh ata, shuva ha'ir b'shalom. And those words, haroeh ata. What does that mean, haroeh ata? Is he asking a question? Do you see, or look here? So that was one of the places where the Gemara previously that we saw was describing, like, you're the visionary, you see this, right? Go back to the city, b'shalom. V'chimatz bincha v'yonatan ben Eviatar, shnei v'nechem itchem. We talked already about the confluence of the names, Yehonatan and Yehonatan. But it could have been coincidental, but it's interesting the name is mentioned here. And P.S., the sons of the Kohanim, Tzadok and Eviatar respectively, they will be with you. I'm going to basically circle around in the plains of the desert. He's going back out to the wilderness. It's one thing to go to the wilderness the first time and be a vagabond, living as a vagabond, which David did do in the time of Shaul, and now he's got to do it again. He knows the script in a certain way, but he said, I'm going to wait for information. Vayashev tzadok v'yatar et Aaron elokim Yerushalayim vayeshu sham. They went back and they're staying in Yerushalayim. Now, v'David oleh b'maleh hazeitim oleh uvocheh v'rosh lo chafui v'olech yachef v'chol ha'am asher ito chafui yishrosho v'alu alo uvacho. David is going up in Mallet HaZeitim, that's on Mount of Olives. Today we're at the same Mount of Olives, and an area just beyond it, pushing a little bit farther north. If you know the topography, I won't show you the video again, but we had seen that video, the films that I took in January was on Har HaZeitim, looking at the Har HaBayit. So he's going up there, he's crying, his head is covered in the way of mourners. He's barefoot in the way of mourners, and all the people are following with him in that manner, and they're all crying. V'alu alo uvacho. V'David higid le'mor Achitofel bakoshrin im Avshalom. Vayomer David sakelna et atzar Achitofel Hashem. And this is, I'm bookmarking this right here. We're going to come back to this pasuk. The basic shot of it is hard to understand, but basically they told David, it was reported to him that Achitofel that's the person we're going to be focusing on a lot today. He's among the conspirators together with Avshalom, and David offers a strange prayer. Here is a prayer. We don't have other prayers right now, but here's a prayer. And what is that? God, please cause the counsel of Achitofel to be made foolish, upended, undone in some way. Vayihi David ba ad, we'll come back to that pasuk. Skip it, but let's go. Vayihi David ba ad harosh asher yishtach v'sham le'Elohim v'hinei likrato chushai ha'arki karua kutonto va'adama al rosho. So David comes to the top, presumably the top of the mountain, and he bows down to God. Where's the bowing down? It's the mountain facing Har HaBayit. So he's facing Yerushalayim to the Har HaBayit. That's our tradition until today. V'hinei likrato, here comes Chushai ha'arki, this individual coming toward him, and he's torn his cloak, and he's wearing earth on his head, a sign of grieving, obvious. So he finds him here. Vayomer la David. David already, right here, opens a dialogue with Chushai ha'arki, and they start having this strange, call it, I don't know, I guess a conversation. Vayomer la David, ima varta iti, v'ayita alay lemasa. Don't come with me, you're just going to be a burden. V'im ha'ir tashuv, v'amarta le'avshalom, avdecha ani amelech, ehyeh eved avicha, v'ani me'az, v'ata v'ani avdecha. Now, this is a very strange verse as well, and it's actually the key of it is going to be to understand some of the relationship with Achitofel, and that's most of what we're going to focus on today. But the idea that this individual was, again, coming close, and we don't know if Chushai ha'arki is Jewish, and he came from a place called, this place of Erech, which is in the area of where the Bnei Yosef used to live, the Gvul ha'arki Atarot, that's what the Radak writes about it, or who he is. But it sounds like in this case he is a Jew, and that he was coming to support. But what was he sent on a mission? It's not a mission to undo Avshalom, it's to gain Avshalom's trust for a particular purpose. The purpose is to try to undo the counsel of Achitofel. V'aloim chasham tzadok ve'Eviatar Kohanim, verse 35. And behold, with you are there not going to be two Kohanim, Tzadok and Eviatar. V'ya kol devar asher tishma mi beit hamelach tagid letzadok le'Eviatar Kohanim, report it to Tzadok and Eviatar. Hinei sham imam shnei v'neihem, achimat letzadok v'yonaton le'Eviatar, u'shlachtim bedam elai kol devar asher tishma. Send me information that will be, the couriers will be the two sons of Tzadok and Eviatar, they're trustworthy. And you'll tell them, and they'll communicate to their sons, and they'll be the runners. And you'll come tell me whatever you hear. Vayavo Chushai, Re'eh David, the friend of David, Ha'ir, to the town. Avshalom yavo Yerushalayim, and Avshalom comes up to Yerushalayim. We'll stop right here to analyze a little bit of what's going on, a little more in depth, but there's strangeness. Everyone sees the strangeness on display. He asked Hashem, the prayer was not undo Avshalom, the prayer was not restore me to Yerushalayim. The prayer, the only prayer we have here, again, you look in the Siddur of David HaMelech, open up chapter 3 of Tehillim. It's right there. He's running away. The prayer instead is undo the words of Achitofel. What does he tell Chushai ha'arki? Go there and do me a big favor. You should really be a spy as regards whatever it is that Achitofel is doing. What about Avshalom? So look with me here in this page. You already have a comment, Shelley, or can we let's go into some of the sources?
Yes, I do, because
okay, go ahead.
Achitofel is the grandfather of Bathsheba.
Oh, we didn't get there. You're letting the air out of the bag before I could get there. I don't understand. I could retire already. You know already all the answers. Wait, we're coming. Wait. But even with that knowledge, we have to ask an important question. So why is he so against Achitofel? Let him be against Avshalom. Achitofel is the national security advisor, but he's not the king. Look with me at this Gemara here, which is a shocking Gemara. There are many shocking Gemaras out there, but give it its due until we finish learning it, okay? It's English from Cincino Online, Hebrew from my Bar Ilan responses CD. It's just easier on the eyes. This is the Gemara Massacred Sanhedrin Daf Kuf Zayin. V'amar B'Yehuda Amar Rav. Just listen to the words. Don't jump on me the first thing. Listen. Bikesh David lavod avodah zara. David HaMelech wanted to worship idols. He didn't, but he sought to. He was waiting to. He expected to. And what's the proof text? Shenamar, Vayi David ba ad harosh, asher yishtachu esham le'elokim. He came to the top, and there he was going to bow down to the Lord. So ve'ein rosh el avodah zara. The rosh referred to here, the head, doesn't mean the top of the mountain, the dead metaphor, but it means worshiping some kind of a head, means something that holds itself up as some kind of power. As it says in the book of Daniel, what do we have in Aramaic? Tav. So fine gold head, a head made out of fine gold, something like that. So that's a little like proof text. Bizarre. V'inei likrato Chushai ki karua kutonto v'adamal rosho. And here came Chushai. Amar lo leDavid. He said to David, Yomru melech shekemotcha ya'avod avodah zara? You want your legacy to be, they're going to say that David HaMelech worshipped idols? Now, pause right here. What's going on? David, the writer of Sefer Tehillim, many of the chapters in Tehillim, the one who we keep calling so spiritual and flawed, but nonetheless, the greatest Baal Tshuva, he thought about worshiping seriously? Said David HaMelech, Amar lo, Melech shkmoti yahargenu beno. You want my legacy to be that my son killed me? Mutov yavod avodah zara vayitchalel shem shemaim befarhesia. Now listen to what's going on. David is basically saying back to Chushai HaArki, I'm worshiping idols now. I'm going to try. Why? Not because I fundamentally believe in idols, but because I want my legacy, listen to this, to be that I committed a terrible crime that is so terrible, I was worthy of being killed. It's one of the three cardinal sins in Judaism for which a person, if they were, God forbid, faced with a gun to their head, bow down to idols or die, you should die. If it's to eat pig, you have to eat pig. Break Shabbos, you have to break Shabbos. Your money or your life, you give away the money. But it's either worship idols or your life, fine, I give you my life. David HaMelech says, I want my son Avshalom's legacy to be not that he murdered his father, but that he did what had to be done to remove an idolater from this world. Why would a father take on the guilt of this sin that he doesn't really fundamentally believe in order to be deserving of death for a capital crime? So number one, anybody who's a parent, you understand. If you're zocher to be a parent, he wants his son's legacy to be that he murdered his own father, patricide, which is also regicide in this case. But let the legacy be, my son Avshalom saw wrongs in this world, and he righted them in a way that most of us realize it's not really the right way because it's vigilante justice, but it really had a kernel of truth to it. Remember what he did to Amnon? Remember what Amnon had perpetrated? On the books, it wasn't really the right thing, but it was a little bit of poetic justice, maybe, that Avshalom killed Amnon for that terrible violation that he perpetrated on someone else. Again, even though truly rape is not considered a capital crime in Judaism, etc., leaving all that aside, but just think of the psychology of it. Further, what was the sin, if you were thinking about, the sins of David HaMelech, let's do it on the level of Pshat, and not on the level of that one line of Shmuel Bar Nachmani who says, anyone who claims that David HaMelech sinned is actually making a mistake, but according to all the other Gemaras. Do you remember we saw this Gemara again and again, that every time David HaMelech goes in the base Medrash, and they're learning some arcane subject, someone invariably raises their hand in the back and says, Rabbi, can I ask you a question? David says, yes, what's the question? So, what is the penalty for someone who commits murder and adultery? So the Gemara keeps describing David HaMelech is davening to Hashem, like they say that I committed these crimes. And what's the response? yeah, Hashem tells him, yeah, I know right? That's the whole point. That technically, maybe David didn't truly commit acts of murder and adultery, not truly, again, Ayin Sham, 3, 4, 5 sessions about the sins of David and the punishments of David. I'm not trying to exonerate him and wash it away, right? For those just joined, if you haven't joined us in a while. But what I am saying is, there might have been some technical way out for David over there, again, but on the spirit of the law, he was way over the line. But in the common understanding, the man had done 2 out of the 3 cardinal sins. What's David doing here? He's saying, Hushai, don't stop me now. I'm doing this not because I fundamentally believe it, but because I'm interested in trading away whatever smidgen of a legacy I have left in order to save my child's legacy and to save my child's skin. And it won't be that really it's just made up, because really I am going to bow down to some kind of idol and thereby seal my own fate, but also equally secure his legacy. So now watch this. Watch this. Amar said Hushai to David, my taima kanasibat yefei toar. Why did you marry a woman who was one of those captives? We keep talking about this issue, right? That Ma'acha, who was the mother of Tamar and of Avshalom, was probably one of these people. So what does David say? Amar le Yefat Toar Rachmana Sharia. What did David tell him? Again, classic. David is talking to him about the letter of the law. It's permitted halachically. Now we saw, and that's what Hushai says to him, Amar le Lo darashta smuchin. You never looked at it in the Torah, the fact that in the book of Devarim, when you see that section, that technically, and that Rashi writes based on the Gemara, that when the Torah says technically, a soldier in battle where the moral boundaries have been loosened because the person's engaging in killing all the time, therefore the man will see a woman and he'll just kind of take her for his own. So the Torah says, yeah, Dibra Torah Kalashon Yetzer Hara. The Torah made a Keneged Yetzer Hara. It gave a concession to the evil inclination, but don't think that this woman is going to come to you without strings attached. You're going to need to marry her. You're going to take care of her. You're going to support her. She's actually going to be your wife, right? So the Gemara, however, goes on to say, and this is what Hushai says to David, right? Like, seems like at the beginning off topic, but you'll see now. What does David say to him? Oh, technically, the Torah permitted it. So Hushai says to him, yeah, technically it's permitted, but weren't you Dori Smuchin? Didn't you look in the Torah at the 2 sections that come right after that section that gives, in quotation marks, license technically to do this? The Samichle, Dvarim Chafalef, Ki Yelish ben Sora More. What does it say right after? You're going to have a child who will be an errant, rebellious child. Kol anose yifator yeshla ben Sora umore. Anyone who marries one of these beautiful captives, you know what's going to happen to them? They're going to have a child who's going to be playing out the terrible trauma inflicted upon them because they know their legacy is, my mom was taken by my dad on a battlefield. Meaning, it's a concession to the Yetzer Hara, but do you see how there's going to be a cascading effect? The old Price is Right. I don't know what's going on in the new Price, but the old one with Bob Barker. Anybody remember Plinko? You drop the thing in and it would go down and some people remember. So I remember this from my youth. I haven't watched Price is Right in 25, 30 years. I'm showing my age, but you know what I'm talking. It's going down. There's going to be a net result over here. It's not going to end just because you say, I did this one thing and now it'll be okay. There will be consequences, intergenerational consequences. What's Hushai telling David? Hey, David, who's Avshalom's mother? Ma'acha? She was an Eish Yifat Toar. You didn't see when that happened that there was going to be a net result? That one daughter, the daughter Tamar, God forbid, would be taken advantage of because her mother was not, she was from the battlefield. It's not exactly aristocracy. And didn't you see the net result that this other kid was also going to grow up with terrible problems and traumas because of your original, don't call it a sin because of the Torah officially says you're allowed to take the beautiful captive on the battlefield. Now, how does that relate to what came before? How is the Reisha and the Sefer connect in this little story, this little vignette between the two of them? How did we get from Hushai Arki saying, "Nu, Rebbe, Umori, Melech, Malcho, and Shal Yisrael. You're going to bow to idols. And David says to them, I'm doing it because better that than a public desecration of God's name. So what comes next? What does Hushai tell him? So tell me, I always was wondering, why did you marry that captive 25, 30 years ago? How are those two related? I'm throwing it out there, if anyone has an idea. Okay, silent type. Look at Rashi. Oh, sorry. Yomru Melech Shekamoti, Rashi. Chassid Shkamoti, Hargo Beno. I'm a pious person. I mean, barring the experience, that happened. But generally, David was known as a spiritual person. So people are going to grumble about the attributes of God. They'll say that's a Shem Shemayim. It was Mitchalel, it's a Chil Hashem. When a tzaddik gets killed by his own child, how come he wasn't protected? Rashi's rendering of this is there will be a violation, a desecration of God's name by the nation saying bad things about God. But it won't be the whole nation. I think it's a little bit different. I can't argue against Rashi, but I don't remember which of them Parshanim says this. But someone else makes this point that it's not the Shem Shemayim what people will say about God because David died, as much as the idea that how could a son be killing his father? So at least we'll rescue Absalom. He'll become the king. Right? So now, Amar Le, Chushai Kila David. Chushai said to David, HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo avidina b'lo dina. If you're getting this and you're really going to be killed by your son, if that's really how this is going to end, which we don't know, God is not going to mete out justice. Shemami bin chal hargecha. Da'at my tamanaz b'difat tor d'imashalav shalom macha ben tamim el gashur. V'tafsada vidba milchama. Right? Dei lomar ba'avera ba'alo dehaktiv rak b'davar uriah hachiti. So he asked them, when you married that woman and she was a captive, was that a violation of law, of halacha? No, it was not. But it is Avshalom's mother, right? And David, you grabbed her in a war. So don't say that the very fact that you have a woman named Ma'acha who had a son named Avshalom, that's the source of guilt. Why? Because after all, Rak bidvar uriah hachiti. What the issue really has to do with what happened in the stories, Bathsheba, and especially with Uriah, on the matter of Uriah. It's a bit quizzical here. It mentions Uriah Achiti. How come it didn't mention the issue of Bathsheba? We'll come back to that in a few minutes. Did you follow the logic? From the beginning here of the conversation about there's going to be a Shem Shammai, a Chil Hashem, in the death of the king at the hand of his son, so that he wants to take the guilt on himself and then prove positive he was worthy of death. He's being asked by Hushai, well, couldn't someone claim that you made a terrible sin by taking Ma'acha? No, David says, because I was technically on the right side of it. Yeah, Hushai says, but aren't you Dorei Smuchin? Because everybody else is Dorei Smuchin. Means the two sections are practically juxtaposed with each other, and the net result is going to be a rebellious son. So you're going to be connected. You're connected to your child anyway. And everybody realizes that whatever's happening to you now is in fact somehow bound up with the legacy that you provided for, or the setup you provided for your own son Absalom. And look now how it's playing out. But we get a window here into the ways in which sometimes parents are willing to take certain guilt or create guilt for themselves if it will sacrifice their own selves and their own legacy and their own future for the sake of their child not being ruined, to their own detriment. And we could argue pardon? Yeah, go ahead.
Why isn't it the same thing with Shlomo?
You're getting too far, Phil. I know what you're saying. His
mother is taken forcibly by his father. So why isn't he a rebellious son? He's got to know what happened. He can't like it.
True, and I'll bookmark that point so when we get back to it, God willing, we come back around again to the birth of Shlomo HaMelech and the legacy there of Shlomo, his mother Bathsheba, and his father David. There's obviously something that went on there, 100%. Look up with me next. Okay, so end of Unit 1. David has climbed another mountain. Wasn't just that it was facing Harabai, it's that he was willing to climb up a mountain of idolatry and was talked down the mountain by who? By Hushai Arki, saying to him, everybody knows why this happened. And if it will turn out that you'll be killed by Avshalom, no one's going to say that you created the devil of Avshalom. They'll say it's really, technically speaking, because of what happened with Uriah Hachiti, you deserve to die on account of what you did. You had Uriah killed. But really behind this, under the surface here, if you look at this Gemara, I think also Hushai is saying to David, didn't you see you were setting this up unwittingly by doing something that is technically permissible, but in the broad scheme of things is setting up a disaster? And now that's what's happening. Plinko, plink, 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 plink. It's coming down the board, and now look what happens. So now here's Avshalom. He's coming at you. You have a Ben Soram or a rebellious son. It shouldn't come as a huge shock relative to what you what you did on the battlefield. Look at Divrei Yamim Aleph, the end of the book, chapter 27. This is the end of David HaMelech's life. This is a section of speeches and different things, and it mentions in this list, chapter 27, a list of all different people it mentions, you could look at verse 32, 33, 34. V'Yonatan Dod David, Yoetz, the beloved one of David, he was his counselor. Ish Mevin B'Soferhu, V'Yichiel ben Chachmoni, Im B'nei HaMelech. Here are the people who are in his inner council. There's a National Security Council. The main advisor is in the court of David HaMelech. V'Achitofel Yoetz HaMelech, V'Chushai Haraki Rea HaMelech. V'Acharei Achitofel, after Achitofel, Yehoyada ben Benayahu, V'Aviatar V'Sar Tzava LaMelech Yoav. It tells you who they are. All the main players in this story. You see that not only Achitofel, but Hushai were both in this inner circle. One was called the counselor, one was called the friend. But they have a role. Now look up again Shmuel Bet, chapter 11. Chapter 11, Pasuk 3, verse 3. Chapter 11 is the sad story of the episode with Bathsheba and with Uriah. How does it begin? Verse 2, let's start there. Vayihi le'et ha'erev, vayakum David me'al mishkavo v'yitalech al gag beit hamelech, vayar isha rochetzet me'al hagag, vayisha tovat mar'eh me'od. He's on the roof, she's seen from the roof. Whether she's actually on the roof or if she's actually in her home, but there's a window, it seems like it's really the latter, not the former, even though a famous musician would say that he saw her on the roof. But it's not necessarily true by the pshat itself. He's on the roof. From the roof, he could see in. And she's very beautiful. Now look at this pasuk carefully. He wants to find out about the woman. What is he told? Vayomer, he says, isn't that Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam? This woman who is the wife of Uriah Hachiti, somehow she's known to him. She's not a stranger. Next pasuk, Vayishlach David Malachim Vayikachel. Why? She lives in Ir David, what we call today Ir David. She lives in proximity of its line of sight. Who lives in the neighborhood right next to the prime minister, the president, the king, etc.? People who can afford it. And certainly in antiquity, people are deserving of it. So here, as we used to say, and some still use the expression, Yipol ha'asimun. The tlush in the phone now, not a haphazard, but it's going to fall directly in. Look at chapter 23, verse 34 in Shmuel Bet. Chapter 23, verse 34. It's Pshat. Chapter 23, verse 34 is the list of the different people who are among the main warriors with David. And what do we find on the list? Long, long, long list. Sometimes you look at these lists, it makes you drowsy. Like, what's interesting here? Nothing. But look at line 34. Eliphelet ben Achsebai ben Ma'achati, Eliam ben Achitofel Hagiloni. Well, Shelley said it in one sentence, but if you want to know the source, this is the source. So catch how this goes. Bathsheba is the daughter of Eliam. Eliam is the son of Achitofel. And Eliam is one of the warriors in David's, whatever you want to call it, guard, his honor guard, not his honor guard, his warriors. He's one of the main people. He's a military man. He's well known. He's Eliam ben Achitofel, and Eliam's father is Achitofel, the main counselor of the king. So now, the main counselor of the king's granddaughter was brought to the palace. She accepted the invitation. Doesn't say she was forcibly brought, but we talked already a lot about how she might have not exactly been so excited and exuberant to show up. She was, after all, married to Uriah, away on the battlefield prosecuting a war for her king. She arrives at the palace. We know what happened next. So if I ever quit the rabbinate and go into show business, this is a film that needs to get made. Everyone will come see this. Isn't it obvious? They sit down to the cabinet meeting, and the king's robe is tussled, and he sits down and he fixes whatever crown he does or doesn't wear. He fixes his kippah struga that he's wearing. He says, I got a conversation with everybody. But everybody knows in the back of the room, because it's sort of in the air. It's already on in the media. He summoned the granddaughter of the main advisor, and she spent some time in his bedchambers. And yeah. But Achitofel bides his time. You see how he bides his time? Hi, Leah. How are you? Welcome back. Unmute yourself. I can't hear you. Unmute yourself and say, I can't hear you.
Can you now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I forgot how wonderful you are.
I forgot how wonderful you are, but it's lovely to see you.
Thank you. Anyway, I think it's rather almost ironical where it says that she was taken and then he went to bed with her and she had gone to mikveh. Like, who in the hell cares if he's going to commit this sin that there's
Pre or
like
post
roots, like
yeah,
a phony roots.
I'm not even going to answer it now, only because we literally spent months parsing chapter 11, chapter 12. It's all archived line, but your point is well taken. It's just that's part of the sin. I'm focused on another part now, which is the hours and days and weeks and months after. The man Achitofel Hagiloni is going to work knowing that the king who he works for was with his granddaughter out of wedlock, abused his station as the king, on technical grounds, made a good argument, apparently, that he wasn't worthy of death, but at the same time, the prophet came and told him, you're going to be punished really severely. And now, where is Achitofel in this story? Who is he hanging out with and giving the advice to? He's a loyalist, Achitofel, to the house of David. But house of David and David are not the same thing. Now, Achitofel here, it screams out at you in a very personal and obvious way. Achitofel is the most important counselor that David has. We'll see now a few examples of why that's true. And he's biding his time until what will happen. Not going to get it. He didn't walk into the king's chambers and poison his wine.
Is the baby dead at this point?
The baby from that initial union is dead. Bathsheba is already married to David. Uriah is dead.
Okay, I know Uriah's dead, but is the baby dead?
Yes, yes. The baby died right away.
Achitofel is doing this at the same time that he's had to see David not dying, and this happens to his granddaughter, and It's all over. Everybody's gossiping about it. She loses the baby, which has to, really bother her.
Yeah.
And he's got to deal with this guy?
Yeah. I mean, by the way, the losing of the baby, I want to point out, losing of the baby today might feel a little bit a little bit different than it did then. And what I
mean
mean
like
is the
it's
child
glad that the
mortality
baby
rate in
died?
antiquity, right, was much, much higher child mortality rate. I'm not trying to minimize a terrible loss. And you see that David, remember, he's sitting Shiva before the baby's born, and then after the baby dies, he gets up, and they'll say to him, now? And he says, well, I prayed as much as I could, but now it died, right? But you're right. I'll throw that into the mix. So Achitofel just waiting and waiting. And now there's another person who he's not going to be a rebel against the crown. He's just rebelling against David. But there is going to be a crown still in the Beit David. Now, let's look together a few minutes at...
I have a question.
Oh, please. Hi, by the way. Welcome.
Tashi
What's your
Khan.
name?
Tashi Khan.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here due to Rosalie, so thank you, Rosalie. But I have a question. How many years later is this after the baby died? After this whole
After the whole episode?
Uh-huh.
It's a few years. Now, how many years? I'd have to start calculating. In the intervening period, Amnon raped Tamar, and then there was this period of 2 years where there was nothing that happened. Then Avshalom killed Amnon. Then Avshalom ran away and was away for several years.
Several years.
Then he came back, and now, so it's 5, 6, 10, I don't know. The truth is I probably should know. I don't know.
I think it's more like 10, 15 years.
Yeah, 10 years could be. Yeah.
Yeah, so imagine that grandfather now is in his, 50s, 60s. He's been waiting a long time with a lot of anger building up.
100%. And now he sees, and if you look at the beginning of chapter 15, again, we're not going back there again, but if you just read for yourself chapter for the beginning, it's not that Avshalom got up one day and said, you're terrible, I'm the new king, get off my throne. It's that Avshalom positioned himself in Shalayim as, don't go to him, I'll give you justice. He's not really going to help you. And he started building a campaign. And then he built more and more of a campaign. And then he was the popular vote. And we talked about this extensively in the previous segments. And that's therefore what happens, that, and David is also thinking, like, maybe I am not meant to be the king anymore. I give it to my son. I worked a long life already, but not like this. And God is God telling me this? This is the way Hashem's telling me? Yeah. So there's all of this, it's all stewing. And absolutely, he's pleading, biding his time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see a few more sources, just to explore this a little further. I'm putting it on the screen again. Just look with me here. And we're coming to this, not this Shabbos, but next Shabbos, a tradition on the weeks between Pesach and Shavuot to learn a Parekh of Pirkei Avot. Here's the 6th chapter. And we learn here, and this is what makes, again, it's so complicated. Halloumi mechaver o Parekh echad, o halacha achat, o pasuk echad, o dibur echad, afilo ot achat. If you learn from another person, from your friend, your fellow, one chapter, one halacha, one verse, even a letter, sarich linhog bo kavod. We have to treat that person with honor, respect, dignity. She'ekei matzina b'David melech Yisrael. Shalom ben Achitofel shnei dvarim bilvad, v'karo rabo alufo umeyua da'o. David learned exactly 2 things from Achitofel, and yet how did he refer to him? He referred to him very, very much with respect. You're my Rebbe, you're my commander, you're my knowledge. He was, after all, his advisor. And it quotes a verse from the book of Tehillim, chapter 55, which God willing we'll get to today. We'll see yet if we get that far. But he mentions his name, right? So the Gemara then says, "V'alo dvarim kal v'chomer." It's an A4-tier argument. Umad David melech Yisrael shlam ben Achitofel el shnei dvarim bilvad. If he only learned 2 things from Achitofel, and yet he called him his master, his commander, and his one who gives him intelligence. So Halloumi mechaver a Parekh echad. If you learn a whole chapter, or a halach, or a pasuk, or one statement, or even a letter, all the more so. Much more so you have to have respect and honor given to that person, right? And what is that respect? Vein kavod el Torah shenamar, right? Different psukim from Mishlei, right? About this idea that we have to, this respect, the respect that's owed to this individual. Just teaching you like one thing. Now, Achitofel, the Gemara says, is actually among the greatest Talmidei Chachamim, certainly of his generation. He was not a fool, and he was not a rube. He really was an individual of great depth and great substance, and great intellectual prowess, which he applied to Torah. The Gemara Massacred Chagiga tells us in one sentence, V'amar Rabbi Ami, Tlat meot baye ba'u doeg va'achitofel b'migdal Parekh ba'avir. I mean, this is one sentence. You spend an hour on it. Let me give you the 38-second edition. Doeg and Achitofel, according to some Gemara, some voices in Chazal, were two people who both sat together and learned. According to others, they never met each other, but they would engage each other's ideas because intergenerationally they were so sophisticated. You will recall the name Doeg as the one who gave Shaul the advice, kill all the people in the town of Nov. He comes across as a barbaric, ruthless person. He was a chief counselor to who? To Shaul. And he went, as we would say today, OTD, off the derech, in wickedness. And who is Achitofel? Same thing. He's one of the conspirators. But what did they spend their time trying to figure out? They imagined something that no one could imagine. What if one day there was a tower? It's an object. A migdal in the olden days was like a chest of drawers or some kind of a box that could fly. And what they tried to figure out is they had 300 different problems of what would happen if one day there was invented an object, a large object, that maybe a person could go into and the object could fly through the air. What would the implications be for all kinds of issues about the metaphysical rules of purity and impurity? So, to those of us who have seen the Vitruvian Man diagram of Leonardo da Vinci and his diagrams of helicopters, a man living during the Italian Renaissance who was well beyond his years, I'm not suggesting that these are the Wright brothers over here, but you do have to admit it's quite something that two people in the time period of the sages of blessed memory, they're imagining those two individuals from the biblical period, already imagining what if people could fly in a box. You could easily answer, well, people were always thinking about flying, so why not fly in a box? And that it was totally theoretical, though, but here we are in 2020 with many, many flying boxes moving through the air at all times. Anyway, the point is, they didn't just think about how to build one. That wasn't their goal. They had 300 problems, thorny problems they're trying to understand about this issue. They were forward-thinking. They were capable of great abstract thought. And the two of them, two peas in a pod, two great chavrusas, were sitting together, chavrusa, they're sitting together in the Beis Medrash with the thumb. Again, you want to say literally they were doing it, or figuratively each one engaged the other's ideas intergenerationally, or perhaps the idea that they were less a chavrusa, two peas in a pod, and much more, whatever you want to say. They were two partners in crimes that they each ended up perpetrating and were responsible for, and Chazal want to put them together. Any of those, I think, are legitimate ways of seeing it. Let's look at a little farther into this. Sheila, you're already shaking your head with such consternation, I can't let you sit quietly. Please say.
There's a big difference in my mind, between the facts on the case of Doeg and the facts on the case of Achitofel.
Yeah, okay.
Doeg instigates this when a whole bunch of other advisors of Shaul say, no way, we're not going to go and kill these people. Yeah. And he volunteers. If David had not taken Bathsheba, Achitofel would never have done this. And there's a big difference between them.
You might be right. I mean, I just tried to make the case in the level of pshat that clearly it's his granddaughter who's in this pickle. But more than a pickle, that's putting it really, I think, too glibly. I'm sorry. This tragedy that was perpetrated, and then the whole thing, the way it unfolded. You're right. But there's some parity between Doeg and Achitofel, as we shall soon see. Let's keep going to fill out more of the sort of the biographical sketch of Doeg, of Achitofel, excuse me. So there's a description about the 15 steps that went from the area known as the Ezrat Nashim up to what's called the Azara in the temple. These are the 15 steps upon which they would sing the 15 songs of ascent, Shir Hamalot. These 15 steps are described in the Gemara Massacred Suka as the steps upon which the band stood, and people would stand, Kohanim would stand, going up the steps during the Simchat Beit Shoeva, the great festival of Sukkot. So, Amali Rav Chisda Lahavmi de Rabbanan, the Gala-Coming. said Rav Chisda to the sage who was in charge of arranging the different agadas in front of him, the different pieces, the homilies. Amar le, Shmi alach hane chamesh esrei malot keneged mi amaram David. Did you ever find out why it is that David came up with specifically 15 of these songs? Remember, in David's day, there was no 15 steps. The steps are built after. There are already 15 songs of 15 steps. And you could have argued easily that no, it's obvious why he wrote them, because David had a tradition he received from his Rebbe, Shmuel Hanavi, the Masorah of how he's going to build the temple, the Mikdash. He wasn't permitted to build it. He handed over the plans to Shlomo. Shlomo built it. So he knew there were going to be 15 steps. That's the easy answer. But we're not into easy answers. That's the pshat answer. But rather the question here is, why 15? Why is that significant? So Amar Le answered this Chacham to Rav Chisda. Hachi Am Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan taught. B'sha'a shekara David shitin. David at a certain point dug shitin. I see here, Cincino writes pits. It's not truly pits. They're more like tubes or tunnels. Tubes or tunnels that go under the Har Habayit. And our tradition is that David actually dug these. These are the tubes and the tunnels that are used for the pouring of the wine libation on the altar. There were somehow tubes that went down, very far down. And these are also the tubes through which the water on Sukkot would be poured on the altar. There was an aperture, a little hole, and it would go, two holes really, and it would pour through. One is the wine, the other is for the water. It would go down on Sukkot. So what happened? When he originally dug this, because even though David couldn't build the Mikdash, he was allowed to lay the groundwork. And he built the foundation. He built the underground part. He built the part that is not seen on the surface, but which is subterra. Kafa tehoma ubayi lemishtafa alma. He dug too far down. He hit something, and there was water that was spurting up to the point where it sought to overwhelm the world. Now I ask you, please, as we're reading this Gemara, nobody should jump on me and say, "What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense." The Gemara makes 100% sense, but not necessarily in the way that you think about it in concrete, literalist terms. So stop thinking literally and start thinking more. What does this mean? That he was digging deep and he went too far in the depth, and now that depth was going to now overwhelm him. So Amar David, 15 ma'alot v'horidan. He said the 15 songs, and he caused it to go down. So ihachi, if that's true, meaning he caused the water to go down, his stating these 15 songs of ascent caused the water to abate. Destructive waters. Ihachi, 15 ma'alot yordot mibayle. It should have been not shir ha'ma'alot, but shir ha'moridot, going down. Laredet, not ma'alot is going up. So Amar Lei said to him, Hoil ve'ad karatan milta hachi itmar. Since you brought it up, since you raised the issue, let me explain as follows, what actually transpired. And now we have the story, and here we're coming to Achitofel. B'sha'ah shekara David shitin, kafa tehoma, uba lemishtafa alma. Same beginning of the story. He started digging, he hit something, and suddenly water was uncontrollably flying out of the ground. Amar David, mi'ika diyada ishar lemichtav shem, achasfa v'najde betahoma umanach. Does anybody here know if it's permissible, since I don't know what else to do, for me to write on a potsherd, on a little piece of pottery, the name of God, and to throw it in? Maybe that can cause it to abate. And no one spoke. Leika de ka'amar lemide. Silence in the base medrash of David HaMelech. Amar David. Kol diyad l'meim ve'ein omer, yichanek bigrono. I announce now, if no one speaks now, I will actually find a way for them to be they will be killed, basically. It's either a curse, may they die by suffocation, or I will cause them to die by suffocation. By suffocation means by hanging. What happened? Nasa Achitofel kal v'chomer be'atzmo. The Achitofel, not the time of the rebellion, but well before, he started thinking about it, and he came to an a fortiori argument. He said as follows, and of course, when you hear the argument, you start, Uma lasot shalom ben ish leishto, if for the sake of bringing peace between a man and his wife, amra Torah shmi shenichtav b'kedushi machel hamayim, right, to bring peace between a husband and a wife. let there be a parchment taken in which the name of God will be written, thrown into some kind of water in a container, and it will be erased thereby, and they'll mix it around till it gets erased. If that's permissible for one wife and one husband, what's that? Parshat Sota. So lasot shalom v'chol olam kul, to make peace in the entire world. Al achad kama v'kama. All the more so if it's to bring peace in the world. Amar le, what did he say to David? Sure, it's permissible. Katav shem achaspa, they wrote the name on the piece of pottery. V'shadi l'tahoma, v'nachi tahomar, shitze alfe garmide. And what happened? The water abated and it went down somehow 16,000 lengths under the ground, 16,000 leagues under the sea. Yeah. So Kichazi the Nachi Tuva, when he saw that it went down so far, Amar said David, Kama midlei tfei mirtav alma. So what did he say when this happened, when it went down? He said, I think there would still be a benefit if the water was not so far away from the surface, but it stayed sub terra, but not totally inaccessible. So what did he do to raise it up? Amar, 15 ma'alot, v'aske 15 alfe garmide. He said the 15 songs of ascent, and every time he did, the water from the sub-terra water came a little bit higher up, closer to the surface. V'ukme ba'alfe garmide, and it stopped 1,000, whatever it is, 1,000 units under the cubits, whatever it is, amot, under the surface. So Amar Ula, therefore we learn Shmamina Sumcha de'ara alfe garmide. We see that when something is close to the earth, so we see, okay, the crust itself is all of 1,000 cubits. Yeah, but don't we see that we actually can dig much less than 1,000 cubits into the ground, and yet we're going to get the water come up? That's because of the water table of the Euphrates, or wherever you live. But that's why there's water. But really, we see that the water is, that's why the water is close to us. But truthfully, where's the real water? It's really, really deep. It's low down. It's deep waters. Puzzling Gemara? So let's start. First of all, Achitofel is the hero. He's not really interested in being the hero. Nobody wants to say. But he starts to reason once there's a threat. And the reasoning that he comes up with is, okay, I can get you a way to solve this problem. And he came up with it. And it worked. So he's the great hero. At the same time, what was the crisis? That a world was going to be destroyed. And Achitofel came up with not the solution, but he gave the license and permission for this solution to be enacted. Everyone with me so far? Move to the next level. The license and the permission was drawn from the context of bringing peace in the home. But we know something about Achitofel and the home that he was part of. Because we know that what happened between David and Bathsheba and Uriah, when he comes home and he doesn't go home, we learned that in depth, is also pretty telling of something, isn't it? There wasn't a Shalom Bayit there, sadly. And at whose hand was that lack of Shalom Bayit perpetrated? We know the answer. And we know that there was never an accusation even by Uriah against Bathsheba. In the end, he was killed. But Achitofel draws upon that story. Now you could say, well, maybe that happened before the story of Bathsheba altogether. Maybe. But his go-to model for this idea of taking an object and throwing it into the deep in order to abate the waters is actually drawn specifically from the realm of Parshat HaSota. What if the idea that David was digging was not just that he probably really physically did dig, but what if his digging under the surface was not just a digging under the surface of physicality, but digging under the surface of reality as we see it. What if David HaMelech was plumbing the depths that are not sub terra, but subconscious? If you learn Sefer Tehillim, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Its beauty and its power herald, number one, from the reality that it was written by divine inspiration. And number one, also, that it was written in a style that is so absolutely beautiful and breathtaking that its timelessness is, in fact, the way in which it speaks to people, the world entire, in so many circumstances of joy and of sadness, of trial and tribulation, and being bereft and feeling guilty, and all different emotions are captured by David HaMelech. But can it be that David HaMelech went too far, and he was worried then that the accessing of too much that is sub terra can actually have a destructive impact? How do you hold that at bay? Can anyone help me to hold it at bay? Who can help me? Says Achitofel, that's a good idea you have. Yeah, you should really try that to make peace, not between a husband and a wife, too late for that, but you can make peace within the world itself, the world and the world. You're going to have to take something, write God's name on it, and throw it in, and it's going to go down. But then David realizes now there's too much of a bifurcation between the realm of the actual in the physical sense of it and the realm of the actual in the spiritual sense of it. So what's he davening for? There should be a connection between what's above and what's below, above ground and below ground. This may seem very esoteric to you, but just keep thinking about the depth of the character that David HaMelech represents, and look at the masterful work of the of Sefer Tehillim. And Dafka, what's the curative? It's the Sefer Tehillim's 15 songs of not descent but ascent, keeping the waters, the turgid waters that are meant to stay under, but not so far away that they're inaccessible. Here they are. And you're looking at it. And we learned from this, I think, something about how the legacy of this is actually bound up with an Achitofel, who is not a two-dimensional character. He's a man of great wisdom and depth. The Gemara also mentions, the Yerushalmi, that Achitofel, the Gemara says, you have to find something new in your prayers every day. And the Gemara then mentions, oh, by the way, you know what was really creative? 3 new prayers from Achitofel every day. He's a composer of tefillah. He's a man who's deeply connected to his spiritual sense. And then comes the slide. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Kuvav, Ram Rabbi Yochanan B'tchila, Kara David, L'Achitofel Rabo, Ulvasov Karo Chaveiro, Ulvasov Karo Talmido. David first called him his Rebbe, then he called him his fellow, then he called him his student. B'tchila Karo Rabo, Bata Enosh Ke'arke Alufi Umiyadi, Ulvasov Karo Chaveiro, then he called him later his friend, Shechtav Namtik Sod, Veit Elokim Nahalach Beragesh. He called him, we'll take sweet counsel together. And in the end, he called him his student, Gam Ish Shlomi Asher Batachti Bo, a reference to homiletically, it was his student. Okay, we're learning something about the depth. I have 5 minutes left. I want to make the most of it. We're coming up on the end of our time together today. Amar Rebbe, excuse me. Abamod Baya Bo Doeg Vachitov Migdal Apor Ba'avir V'Leifshet Lehuchad. They were great at propounding and coming up with the problems, but sometimes they locked themselves up in problems they couldn't actually solve. So, Amarava, Rabotilim bye. All right. So he says, is that really a great thing? That we can't figure out problems. You can make problems that you can't actually counsel, find answers for. Anybody could do that. And he goes on to describe, I'm trying to read the whole Gemara inside and see it in the English to be more comfortable with that. It describes that when we're studying a lot of different areas of halacha, so the idea that they came up many problems each time, yeah, and so on and so forth, right? But what we find afterward is that one of the things that is sort of the key to the idea is that it's not going to be enough to think about one's intellectual prowess, but rather, Ela Kadosh Baruch Hu liba bai. Hashem desires the heart. The Achitofel, as it says, chapter 16, which we haven't gotten to yet. We have gotten to, already, back in Shmuel Aleph. Hashem yireh lelivav. Hashem sees the inside of hearts. So then the Gemara says, Doeg v'Achitofel amar b'Shashaya, Doeg v'Achitofel lo havu savrei shmaita. Their problem was they simply did not really understand their learning properly. Matkif lamar zutra, mandichtiv be aye sefer, aye shakel, aye sefer et amigdalim, that ba'atamart lo havu savrei shmaita. They had all these problems. They came up with the towers. They had a lot of intellectual understanding of everything. So now the Gemara says, no, ela delo kasalka lehu shmaita liba de hilchata. But their views were simply not in accordance with how the halacha was going to go. Why? Dichtiv sod Hashem lire'av. The secret of Hashem is to the one who actually fears Hashem. What was wrong in the end of Achitofel is his brain was bigger than his heart. Or you could say his brain overtook his heart. And so he was a great counselor, but once his heart was no longer with David, and his heart was perhaps no longer with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, unclear, but it might be really that, he actually ends up doing what? Becoming a conspirator. From a great mind came, unfortunately, in the end, great destruction. And on the list of people, after the Mishnah says very beautifully, every Jew has a share in the world to come, and it has you a list of who doesn't have a share in the world to come. Who made it to the list? 4 commoners: Bilam, Achitofel, Doeg, Achitofel, and Gehazi. He fell very far, according to the Gemara. And it describes why he fell very far. And this is the description of the Gemara in Massacred Sanhedrin, page 101. Is that basically he saw that different parts of his body had leprosy, had sara'at, and he decided it must be a sign that I'm actually going to have the king emerge from me. Why that is, I won't go into right now, but that's the description here, right? Batsheva Bito, who denafka mina Shlomo. In the end, that is what happened through his granddaughter's son, meaning Shlomo Melech is the great-grandson of Achitofel. But what do we know about people who skip a step? They think that the king is going to emerge from them, and they don't know what it means will emerge from them. So they think either I'm going to be the king now, Korach, that was his rebellion. He didn't realize that Shmuel would come from him, but he thought I'm it. And it's right here. Achitofel sees something in the future, the king will emerge from me. Well, it was, but he didn't realize it's going to be through Batsheva. So what's he doing in the meantime? He's rushing to spend time with Avshalom, the conspirator. We're out of time today to look up Tilm 55. I urge you to look at it. Chazal understood it to be the tefillah that David HaMelech recited about his erstwhile friend, colleague, Rebbe, and counselor, Achitofel. So I won't read you the whole medrash, just the blue part here. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, lo nityare David me'adam el me'Achitofel. David was only afraid of one man, and that was Achitofel. You should please, I want you to listen to what I'm saying. And be my guard, basically. Don't forsake me and be away from my petition. Right? I'm worried about the sound of my enemy and the sound that comes from the wicked one. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lo ata amarta im tachanel amachanel relibi. Aren't you the one who composed Tilm 27? That if there'll ever be anything against you, you won't be afraid? You'll be with, Hashem is with me? So what are you afraid of? Amar lefanav ribono shel Teilim elotan erdov oivai ba'asigem lo shuvad kalotam. All right, please let me have them, basically. But help me to do it. V'chein amar David v'nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ein zeh me'oten shen mu'min ha'olam aval zeh ki yotze bohu. Right, it doesn't mean from the nations of the world, but this one specifically. And then it keeps going, right? The notion that it's a gaver rabbah that he's against. That he realizes Achitofel is a great Talmid Chacham, and Achitofel is a great, potentially was a great tzaddik at some point. He's a gaver rabbah, right? So I'm worried. I'm worried what's going to happen, and that's the quote that we saw in the Gemara. This one here. right? They started, he's the Masada, the halachas, he arranges them. He's my commander, he's my Rebbe, he taught me Torah, and I owe him, right? So David is very concerned about this. And of course, the idea that David will transfer his upset about Avshalom onto Achitofel, it's not that my son Avshalom is wicked, it's that my counselor Achitofel, his brain has overtaken his fear of God and his fear and respect for the king. He's giving counsel. If Hashem would only get rid of the counsel of Achitofel to my beautiful son Avshalom with his long locks and his great charisma, he'll come home. It's not really about Avshalom. It's about Achitofel, who's become wicked. And I'm afraid of him because I owe him so much. The world, according to that Gemara we saw previously, owes him the world. And how is this going to turn out? And what we'll see in the coming installment, God willing, next week back at our regular time, is what transpires next in the in the back and forth between David and Achitofel, actually in the council of Achitofel and the place that it holds for David. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Whew. 1 hour 26 minutes. That's a long shear, but I hope you got something out of it. So okay, have a great day, everybody. I wish you all the best. And tomorrow is already Erev Shabbos. I wish you a good Erev Shabbos. And we'll meet, God willing, next week at the regular time, 9:30 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Good night,
Be well.
Rabbi.
We'll be in touch
Great
soon. God willing.
class.